The road home is different. Not in the way of altered terrain or changed maps, but in the way your own shadow feels lighter. Each step carries less of the tension that has followed you for how long? Days, weeks? Or was this route never measured in time at all? Baozi senses it too. He walks with surprising grace, less like a begrudging pack animal, and more like an old friend who's seen you through too much to argue anymore. His hooves tap a rhythm that feels familiar, even comforting. It's the cadence of return. The path takes you through golden fields where the grain has already been harvested. Stalks trimmed close to the earth wave softly in the breeze, like 1,000 tiny hands waving farewell or welcome. It's hard to say. You pass a group of children flying paper kites shaped like birds and dragons. One runs up to you and offers a folded slip of parchment. "For you," she says. You unfold it. There's a single ink stroke, an arc like the top of a hill. She giggles. It's a question, she explains. You bow deeply. Because it is. You leave the slip in a shrine box by the road, letting the wind carry the answer. Later, you stop by a creek to let Baozi drink. While he laps at the water, you remove the new scroll from your satchel. Still blank. Still humming softly in your hand like a low breath waiting for shape. You don't open it. Not yet. Instead, you think of every scroll you've carried, those heavy, with laws, with taxes, with love, with names you never said aloud. You think of the red string scroll, of what it whispered, of what it never said. You think of the ones you never delivered because the message was meant for you. The sun begins to lower as you reach the edge of your home village. It looks smaller now, not because it changed, but because you have. A few familiar faces wave from doorways, from under eaves, from fields. You nod. You smile. You keep walking. You reach the dispatch hall just as the bell rings, once low and long. Inside, your old supervisor sits at the desk, scribbling onto a slate. He looks up, startled. "I thought you weren't coming back." "I almost didn't." He nods. Then he says you delivered. You pause. Most of them. He doesn't press. "Your route's cleared," he says. "You're off the list." You don't respond. Instead, you place the new scroll gently on the counter. He frowns. "What's this?" "I don't know." He tilts his head. "For someone else." "Maybe." He runs his hand over the parchment. "It's warm." You nod. It listens. You turn to leave, but stop at the door. Then quietly, "What do you do with a scroll that has no address?" He leans back. "You wait." "And if no one comes?" He shrugs. "Then maybe it's meant for you." You walk home slowly, watching the lanterns begin to bloom along the main road. Each one a small sun in the dusk, steady and soft. That night, you sit under the tree where you began your first courier route. You light a lamp. You eat a quiet meal. You lay the satchel down beside you. And at last, you open the new scroll. There is writing now. Just one line. "Thank you for remembering us." You read it once, then again. Then close your eyes and rest. You've walked far enough. You've carried enough. Now the message carries you. The willow rustles softly above you, its thin branches dipping toward your bedroll, like the long arms of an old friend. You don't remember falling asleep. One moment, you were staring at the outline of your hand in the scroll. The next, the stars were gone, and the world was stained blue with pre-dawn quiet. Baozi wakes first. He snorts, then begins his morning ritual of stretching like he's been personally inconvenienced by the passage of time. You offer him the last of the bread. He doesn't accept it, but he also doesn't bite you, which is as close to affection as you're going to get today. Today. The final leg. You feel it in your bones. Not just the exhaustion of walking, not just the ache of too many messages, and not enough questions answered. No, this is the weight of ending. The kind that wraps around your ankles not to drag you down, but to make you feel each step. You recheck the satchel. 3 scrolls remain. Only one hums now. The others are still. Not empty, just finished. You leave the lakeside village behind as the sun rises, the sky turning from charcoal to copper. The road climbs once again, of course it does. The end is always uphill. The path narrows into forest, not the sinister kind. No flute-playing phantoms. No reversed voices. Just pine and mist and the soft, living hush of trees that have seen too many couriers pass to be impressed anymore. At midday, you reach the terrace ledge overlooking a monastery complex you've never seen before. but feel like you've visited in a dream. Red tile roofs, whitewashed walls, and at its heart a single tower with no windows. You descend the path slowly. No one greets you, but the gates are open. Inside the courtyard, monks move like brushstrokes, silent, purposeful, their eyes always on their steps, never looking up. And yet, they know you're here. You are led without words to the tower. The door opens inward. You step inside. It is not a room. It is a spiral. The stairs wind up and up without railing or candle. Just a thin thread of light falling from the top like silk. You climb. Each turn makes your head lighter. Each step your thoughts quieter. By the time you reach the top, you feel as though you've left something behind, but not sure what. At the summit, a room of pure stone. No altar. No statue. Just a table. You set the satchel on it. You remove the final scroll. The humming one. You place it gently down. It unrolls by itself. No wax. No string. No resistance. And this time, finally, you read the words. There aren't many. Just for the one who carried us when no one else could. Not for reward. Not for glory, but because the path was there. And below that, you may rest now. You sit. You breathe. The scroll rolls closed again and vanishes, not in a flash, not in smoke. It simply folds into the space like it had always belonged here and had only waited for you to carry it home. You close your eyes. You listen. No flute, no wind, just your own heartbeat. And then, footsteps behind you. You turn. The supervisor is there again, but he is older now. Or perhaps you are. He hands you a new satchel. Inside, one scroll. No string. No seal. No markings. Just possibility. You've earned a shorter route, he says. You nod. He pauses at the door. One last thing. Yes, he smiles. It's not the scroll that changes the courier. It's the carrying that makes the message. And he leaves. You follow soon after. Baozi is waiting, chewing on the welcome mat. You mount up. The path ahead is simple this time. Just a road. Just a journey. But in your bag, a blank scroll. Waiting for its story. Waiting for you. Morning arrives as a quiet breath. No fanfare. No rooster crowing. Just the slow return of color to the world. You rise before the light fully crests the eastern hills. Limbs stiff-faced, damp with dew. Baozi is already awake, staring at you, with what can only be described as mild, existential concern. You nod at him. I know, you say. We keep going. The satchel feels different today. Not lighter, not heavier, just settled. The scrolls inside have stopped humming, or perhaps they've begun listening. You can't tell, but there's a calm to it, like they're no longer resisting you, or testing you. You walk downhill into the valley. This is the part of the journey most couriers dread, not for its danger, but for its ease. The landscape is lush, the path well-tended. Birds sing, farmers wave. A woman offers you a slice of pear. The kind of road that makes you forget how strange things have been, and that's why it's dangerous. You almost let your guard down. Almost. But then, just beyond a split in the trail, you see something that brings the tension rushing back. A mirror. Not large, about the size of a rice bowl, mounted on a wooden post. Its surface is scratched. Old, but it reflects you clearly. Too clearly. You stare. And for a moment you see yourself carrying nothing. No bag. No donkey. No route. Just you. Barehanded. Bare-shouldered. Unburdened. It's horrifying. You look away. Behind the mirror is a rest station, abandoned but intact. You step inside. There's a table. A scroll rack. And a message, written on the wall in brush ink. Some letters are too heavy to carry alone. Leave one, take breath. You sit. You unwrap a scroll not at random. You know which one. The one that's been quietest. You lay it on the table. It unrolls without resistance. On the parchment is a single character, Ting Sapurkisis, to listen. You understand. You close your eyes, and you listen. To wind, to footsteps on far-off gravel, to Baozi huffing outside, and to something else. Your own breath. Still here, still moving. You roll the scroll, leave it on the rack. You walk outside. The valley opens up before you. A great expanse of water glinting in the sun. Fields terraced down to the horizon. And far, far in the distance, a mountain that seems to lean forward, like it's listening too. You follow the path toward the water. By midday, you reach the ferry. A flat boat guided by rope just like before, but this one has no ferryman. No passengers. Only a scroll resting neatly on the bench. It's yours. One of the ones you've been carrying, but now it has writing. You sit, unroll it. The words are old. Not yours. Not now. But they make your chest ache. For the one who never left but kept walking anyway. You rewrap it. Carry it across the water yourself. Baozi stands at the far shore when you arrive, as if he had taken a different route entirely and still arrived before you. You pet his neck. He tolerates it. The next town is only a few... lie. Beyond a small lakeside village with wind chimes in every window. You deliver a scroll there to a woman who says nothing, only nods and places it on her kitchen altar. She gives you tea and asks, "Do you remember your first delivery?" You pause. You try. You think of rice fields, a thunderstorm, an argument over wax. You nod slowly. Yes. She smiles. Then you're nearly done. You don't ask how she knows. By evening, you camp beneath a willow tree. Baozi sleeps with his legs twitching, as if dreaming of outrunning tax collectors. You light no fire. You eat a little bread. You open one more scroll. There are no words inside, just a faint outline of your own hand, pressed into the parchment. You trace it with your fingers, and for the first time since this all began, you whisper aloud, "Thank you," not to the scroll, to whatever gave it to you, and to yourself, for carrying it this far. Dawn arrives slowly, filtering through the sky, in watercolor strokes, peach lavender, the faintest hint of gold. You wake before the light fully settles your body stiff from sleeping on packed earth, your breath fogging faintly in the chill air. The scrolls are quiet this morning, still humming yes, but low. Gentle, as if they've settled into a rhythm your rhythm, not demanding, not resisting, just being. You rise brush dust from your robe and check on Baozi. He's awake chewing on a tangle of weeds with a look that says, "You owe me something extravagant for this. You owe him more than you can repay." The hamlet is already stirring. A woman sweeps her porch with a broom made of bound reeds. A boy practices calligraphy on a stone slate, his brushstrokes whispering against the water-slicked surface. Before you leave, you return to the gathering platform and place a pebble on the edge. A courier's gesture off the record unmarked, but understood. It means passage, honored memory, held. You set off without ceremony. The trail today winds north, curving through hills so soft they seem sculpted for sleep. You walk in silence, letting the rhythm of your steps guide you more than any map. The scrolls shift occasionally in the satchel like restless birds. Mid-morning, you pass through an orchard of leafless trees, their branches strung with small tags of paper prayers, wishes, names of the forgotten. Some are new. Some are frayed to nothing. A few flutter as you walk by. One detaches. It drifts down lands against your chest. You pick it up. No writing. Just a smudge of red ink in the corner. Familiar. Wax seal red. The kind used on the red string scroll. You tuck it into your sleeve and keep walking. A few lie. Later, the path descends into a gorge with cliffs that rise like bookshelves on either side. The wind funnels through in sharp bursts, scattering dust and snatches of birdsong. You hear the river before you see it low, steady the sound of time moving sideways. There's a footbridge here, older than the Dynasty, maybe older than the calendar. Stone supports wooden slats patched with newer wood in places where it's clearly given way before. At its center stands a woman. She's barefoot. Her robe is gray, and she is holding one of your scrolls. You freeze. She lifts it slowly with both hands and smiles. "Do you remember?" she asks. "I never saw you," you reply. "But you carried me." The words stick in your chest. You were in the scroll. I was between it. Not written, not read, but felt. She approaches. Not walking, drifting. Like she belongs more to mist than to earth. "You're still carrying 5, she says and touches the scroll she holds to your chest over the satchel. "Take this one back. It has more to say now." The scroll melts into your bag. You don't feel its weight, but something inside shifts. "You're not alone," she says. You start to ask what she means, but the wind cuts through the gorge, and when you blink, she's gone. You cross the bridge quickly, heart hammering. On the far side, the world feels warmer again. The air softens. The shadows recede. You stop beside an abandoned well and check the scrolls. There are 7 now. You don't question how. Only one bears writing, not visible but present. You feel it, a story waiting. You continue onward. By afternoon, you arrive at a post station deep in the hills, one of the old ones from before the Empire standardized courier lines. The building is half collapsed, overtaken by moss and vines, but the bell still hangs by the door. You ring it. No answer. But a compartment at the side swings open. Inside, a shallow basin of water, a blank scroll, and a brush. You hesitate. Then take one of your scrolls and lay it beside the basin. You dip the brush. You don't write. The scroll writes itself. Words appear in wet ink as if your hand has remembered something your mind forgot. This was meant for someone who never came, but you did, and that's enough. The ink dries. You place the scroll in the bin marked interim. You keep walking. As the sky fades into evening and the crickets begin their night chorus, you find yourself on a ridge overlooking a wide expanse of mist-drenched farmland. Lights glint from far-off houses. Smoke rises in lazy curls. The world exhales. You sit on a stone. Remove one more scroll. It unwinds easily. Blank. But somehow you feel peace in it. Not silence. Peace. You roll it back up and place it in the satchel. 7 scrolls again. Or maybe 6. Or maybe 1. You lie back, eyes on the stars. You wonder, who carries you? And from where, and to whom? The road ahead is wide, but quiet, an odd balance between invitation and unease. Each step you take feels like it echoes just a second too late, as if the path itself is remembering where you've been rather than simply letting you go. Baozi walks beside you without complaint. That alone is enough to raise alarm. He hasn't snorted, paused to chew bark, or faked a limp in at least half an hour. Either something's deeply wrong, or he's turned philosophical. The scrolls in your satchel. 6 now, all blank, press lightly against your side. Lighter than messages, heavier than silence. You haven't read them. You haven't even unwrapped them since the hall. But you feel their weight in your dreams. Now gentle pressures against memory. Nudging questions you can't articulate yet. As the day wears on, the landscape flattens. You walk through long fields of dry grass, past water wheels turning with soft complaint, and old men sitting in doorways carving names into walking sticks. One raises a hand to you, not a greeting, but a wave of recognition. You've never seen him before. He says simply, still carrying. You nod. He smiles sadly and returns to his carving. By midday, you arrive at a cluster of 3 houses. One has a scroll rack built into the exterior wall. The others are shuttered tight. A woman stands at the scroll rack, sorting tied messages into slots. You approach quietly. Courier, she asks without turning. Yes. Drop off. You hesitate. I'm not sure. She looks at you now. Her eyes are light gray, and her expression is one of polite confusion, like someone reading a letter in a language she doesn't know, but thinks she used to. You're not on the register, she says. I'm post-register, you say, realizing the words make no sense, and yet feel absolutely correct. She nods. They come through sometimes. Who? The ones who finish. You both stand there in silence a moment. Then she asks, may I see one? You reach into your satchel and remove one of the scrolls. Unlabeled. Unsealed. Wrapped in nothing but plain linen. She takes it gently and lays it on the wooden shelf. When she unrolls it, there's writing. You step forward. It's not your hand. It's not anyone's, but it's their faint, wavering strokes like wind-blown smoke. To the child who waited at the swing bridge, I came back. I remember. You look at her. She's crying silently. She rolls the scroll back up, wraps it, and places it on the rack under a label marked Delayed Memory. You say nothing. You leave. The road ahead takes you past a riverbed filled with white stones. They rattle faintly in the wind like dry leaves. Baozi stops here, refusing to move, until you pick up one stone and place it in your satchel. The scrolls shift slightly to make room. You don't question it. You reach a hamlet at dusk. It doesn't appear on any courier map. No markers, no post points. Just 7 homes, a tea stall, and a wide flat platform where people gather not to sell, not to chant, just to remember. They recognize you as you approach, not your face, but your shape. You're one of the walkers, a man says. They said you'd be by. You sit on a mat. Someone brings you rice tea. Someone else leaves a small clay figure at your feet, a donkey perfectly modeled, right down to the judgmental squint. You offer one of the scrolls. A child takes it and hands you a folded piece of cloth in return. Yours, she says. You open it. Inside is a map, hand-drawn. Faint lines, but it leads to a place you've never seen, and a name you haven't heard since training. Your own. You look at the child. She smiles and says, don't stop yet. They're still remembering. That night you sleep under the open sky. No roof, no walls, just stars. The scrolls hum in your bag, but gently now, like they're waiting. And the wind does not play the flute. It just carries you forward. You stand in the courtyard for a long while, the weight of the past few days settling into your joints like old rain. The sky above is so clear it almost hurts to look at sharp blue stretching in every direction. No clouds, no haze, no weight. Even Baozi seems to feel it. He lets out a long theatrical sigh and plops onto the ground with the grace of a deflating gourd. You should report in. That's the rule. Every courier returning from a high-grade route is expected to check in at the local dispatch hall log. Their mileage declare all seals intact or not, and submit a written reflection if the journey involved unusual conditions, which in your case would require its own appendix, and possibly a therapist. But when you arrive at the dispatch hall, something is off. Not broken, not wrong. Just still. The hall is empty. Scrolls are stacked neatly on every surface, sorted and sealed. The inkwells are full. The brushes are clean. But no one's here. Not the scribe who always snacks too loudly. Not the clerk with the crooked glasses. Not even the old rooster who usually wanders in to judge everyone's penmanship. You call out. No reply. Then a voice quiet measured right behind you. You're early. You spin. It's the supervisor. Not yours, but familiar. Too familiar. He's dressed in the formal robe of a senior relay officer, deep blue with silver trim, but his badge where his name should be is blank. You finished the route, he says. That's unusual. Unusual? He nods. Most red-string carriers don't come back through the front door. You swallow. What does it mean? He walks past you, gently adjusting the angle of a paperweight on a stack of petitions. It's a smooth black stone, etched with a river pattern. It means you're now part of the other road. You frown. The what? He turns to face you fully. The couriers who take scrolls, us that take back. You sit mostly because your knees suddenly forget how to argue. I didn't ask for this. Of course not. That's how it works. He gestures to your satchel. Open it. You do. Inside are 6 scrolls. None are yours. None are sealed. All are blank. You blink. Where did... He holds up a hand. They're echoes. Fragments of the one you carried. Leftovers. They need to go home. To where? He shrugs. Different places. Different times. Some are past. Some are almost now. You want me to deliver them? No, I want you to walk with them. Let them remember. That's when you realize these scrolls aren't messages. They're questions, waiting for you to understand them by carrying them. You look up. He's gone. No footsteps, no rustle of robes, just gone. You're alone again. Well, except for Baozi, who has wandered into the office and is actively chewing on a bamboo ink brush. You remove one of the blank scrolls. It hums faintly. Not like the red string scroll. This is quieter, gentler, like a story that's been sleeping for a long, long time. You wrap it in cloth. Tie the knot. Feel it settle against your side like a secret you've known since childhood, but only now remembered. Outside the bell tower chimes once. A sound like home. A sound like next. You step outside. Baozi follows hooves tapping rhythmically, as if he's already memorized the new route. The road ahead splits in 3. Left toward the mountains. Right toward the coast. Straight toward the unknown. You pick the straight path, because that's what you do now. You carry what isn't written. You walk the route that's remembered. And if you're lucky, maybe the flute won't play tonight. But even if it does, you'll listen. Because you've learned something no map ever shows. Some scrolls don't reach their destination. They become it. The grass path is narrower than you expected. Almost too narrow, as if it's being begrudgingly tolerated by the landscape itself. The tall reeds whisper around your knees, brushing your arms like curious fingers. Baozi hesitates at first, but follows his hooves, pressing the grass into a thin, winding trail behind you. The sky shifts overhead, clouds thickening into a low, milky haze. No sun, No shadows. The kind of light that forgets how to make warmth. You press onward. No milestones mark this route. No shrines, no markers. Only the occasional stone jutting up from the ground, worn smooth not by foot traffic, but by rain and memory. After an hour of silent marching, you see it. A house. Alone, standing crooked in a field of black reeds. Not abandoned exactly. Not lived in either. The roof is patched with mismatched tiles. The door hangs slightly ajar, and the windows are covered in pale cloth that breathes with the wind. A lone paper lantern dangles above the threshold. It doesn't move. You approach slowly. Baozi stays behind, suddenly very interested in a patch of moss. You reach the steps. Knock once. The door creaks open without assistance. Inside silence. The room is bare. A table. A stool. A candle that burns but doesn't flicker. On the far wall, a scroll rack empty, and beside it a lacquered box. You step in. The air is dry, ancient, like someone bottled last year's drought and left it to ferment. Then a voice. You're early. It comes from the far corner. A woman stands there now. You didn't hear her enter. She wears a robe the color of storm clouds, and hair tied in a knot so tight it hums with tension. You straighten. You were expecting me? She nods. We always are. You hesitate. I was told this path led nowhere. She smiles faintly. Nowhere useful, but very far nonetheless. You set the satchel on the table. Her eyes lock onto it. You've carried it longer than most, she says. Few make it past the swing bridge. You don't respond. Not yet. She steps forward. May I? You pause, then open the satchel. The red string scroll is sitting calmly, its wax seal still intact. The string has darkened slightly, not from grime, but from absorption, like it's been listening. She reaches for it. Stops. It'll need your permission. You frown. It's a scroll, not a beast. She raises an eyebrow. Isn't it? You place your hand on the scroll. It's warm. It vibrates faintly beneath your fingers. Then without knowing why you speak. I carried you. I resisted. I obeyed. The wax cracks. A hiss. A sound not quite air, not quite voice. Like the exhale of parchment. Like a whisper that's forgotten its words. The scroll unrolls itself. Just a little. Enough to reveal 3 lines of text. You and the woman both lean forward. She reads aloud. To the one who delivers what should not move. To the one who walks forward in echo. To the one who chose not to look back. Then silence. No signature. No seal. Just that. She turns to you, her face unreadable. That's all. You nod. Do you understand it? No. She folds the scroll slowly, reverently. Then she places it in the lacquered box, closes the lid, locks it with a simple iron key, and sighs. You've passed. Passed what? The test. Whose test? She gestures toward the door. You turn. Outside the field is gone. In its place a courtyard. Familiar. The same one you left 2 weeks ago. The bamboo, the stable, the bell tower. You're home. You stare. Turn back. The woman is gone. So is the scroll. So is the house. Only the box remains on the table untouched. You step outside. Baozi is there, looking smug. You pat his neck. He snorts. You glance at the sky. Clear now. Bright. A warm wind moves through the trees. And somewhere behind you, the flute plays one last time. But this time, you do look back. And there's nothing there. Only grass. Only sky. Only forward. You don't speak for the next hour. Not a word. Not even to Baozi, who normally expects a running commentary on every pebble puddle and poultry encounter. You just walk forward, steady quiet. Because whatever voice came from behind you, mimicking yours in reverse like a badly wound memory, it took something with it. You feel a bit lighter now. Not in the good way. In the did something get peeled off me way. The road leads into low marshland, where the earth is spongy, and the insects sing with overconfidence. Dragonflies zip across your path in shimmering arcs. Frogs croak in musical disagreement. A stork watches you from atop a thatch roof hut with the judgmental posture of someone who pays his taxes early. This stretch of the journey is where most couriers begin to fray physically and mentally. Your robe is damp. Your socks are damp. Your thoughts are damp. But you press on because there's no turning back. Not with that scroll still warm against your spine. Ahead, you see the boundary marker, a tall wooden arch draped in faded red ribbons. It marks the edge of 2 prefectures. Technically, you're supposed to present yourself to the regional post office before continuing, but your orders are flexible, and the regional postmaster is known to have opinions about couriers who wear satchels too tightly. You're not in the mood for fashion criticism wrapped in protocol, so you bypass it. Instead, you head toward the next delivery point, the Taoist Temple of the Jade Hollow, a quiet sanctuary nestled in a glen of plum trees and philosophy. You hope, because your record for peaceful temple stops lately is disappointing. As you crest the next rise, the trees part, revealing the temple's outer wall, a low, moss-covered stone structure, with symbols painted in white lime along its base, warding sigils, charms against imbalance, and one that might just be a doodle of a turtle playing a flute. You knock once on the wooden gate. Silence. You knock again. Finally, the door creaks open, and a young acolyte peers out, hair tied in a knot so tight it's clearly for discipline, not style. Courier. Yes. She opens the gate fully and bows with a grace that says she's practiced more than she's eaten. You enter. Inside the temple is oddly vibrant trees blooming, despite the season air scented with something floral and unfamiliar. The path winds between low stone lanterns, each one bearing a different phrase. The eye cannot see the wind, but it blinks because of it. He who reads all scrolls eventually writes none. Don't pet the temple cat. You pass them, trying not to overthink any of it. The elder priest greets you at the central pavilion. He looks like a withered crane, tall, pale limbs folded with deliberate elegance. You've brought a message, he says. You reach into the satchel and retrieve Scroll 5, a regional notice on grain taxes for temple-affiliated farming communities. Boring, bland, exactly what you need after recent events. He receives it reverently as if you've handed him a prophecy. Then he gestures for you to sit. You do. He pours tea, steaming green delicate in fragrance. You carry another, he says. You don't answer. He nods anyway. It's not the first time we've felt it. You take the tea with both hands, grateful for the warmth. The priest continues. Some scrolls are written by the hand, others by the weight of time. You sip. It's good tea. He adds if you're not careful, you'll start to dream in its language. That makes you pause. Because you did. The swing bridge. The child. The light. You must deliver it soon, he says. Before it begins rewriting. Rewriting what? You. That night, you sleep on a straw mat in the outer guest room. The moonlight filters through a rice paper window. Somewhere nearby, bamboo chimes tinkle with each shift of wind. You wake once, heart pounding. No sound. No flute. But your satchel is open. Scrolls untouched. Still in order. Still sealed. But your badge, the copper one with your courier number, is gone. In its place, a folded slip of paper. You open it. One sentence in brushstroke ink. Not everything carried is meant to arrive. In the morning, the badge is back, hanging from the bamboo eaves above your bed. You don't ask how. You don't even check if it's real. You just attach it and keep moving. Later that day, you reach a fork in the road 1 path wide, and clear the other barely visible, winding through overgrown grass. The wide path leads to the magistrate's estate. The grass path, no known destination. The scroll in your bag is suddenly warm again, throbbing like a pulse. You don't even hesitate. You take the grass path. Because at this point, you need to know where it's taking you. You descend the mountain trail slowly, trying to keep your breath even and your heartbeat quieter than your boots. The wind has picked up whistling through the narrow rock crevices, like some off-duty god practicing scales. You try to ignore the fresh footprints. You try to convince yourself they were already there, that maybe some hunter, some pilgrim, some other rational explanation had passed through minutes before. But your stomach doesn't buy it. Neither does Bayozi. He walks just behind you, uncharacteristically silent. No snorts, no sideways glares. Even the turnip bribe you offered at the ridge summit went untouched. And if there's one universal rule of Tang Dynasty couriering, it's this. If Bayozi isn't eating, something is deeply wrong. The trail drops you into a shaded ravine lined with willows. The branches hang low, brushing your head as you pass, as if checking for scrolls or secrets. You press onward, feet squelching through soft clay. Just ahead lies the monastery. Perched atop a grassy knoll, the building rises into view like a painted scroll. Curved eaves, gray tiles, dappled with lichen prayer flags strung between trees. A copper bell hangs from a wooden beam at the gate. You ring it once. A monk answers. Tall, bald robes like pressed paper. He bows slightly and looks past you, clearly checking for someone else. Courier, he asks. You nod. Delivery for Senior Abbot Kai. He opens the gate. Inside the monastery grounds are silent. Not peaceful, just muted. No chant. No bell. No running novices. Even the birds have gone quiet. You're led through a corridor with wooden floorboards worn smooth by generations of sandal soles. At the far end, Abbot Kai waits. An old man with a face like folded silk and hands that never stop moving, tracing invisible diagrams in the air. When he sees you, he exhales. You have it, he says. Again, not a question. You nod and remove one of the standard scrolls, not the red string. A simple temple accounting record. You pass it to him carefully. He accepts it, unrolls it an inch, then sets it down beside a bowl of red beans. His fingers tap against the scroll in a pattern. 7 taps, pause 5 more. Then he whispers something too soft to catch. You wait. He doesn't look up. Instead, he says, you're still carrying it. Yes. He finally meets your eyes. You shouldn't be. You say nothing. The longer you do, the more it listens. You glance at the satchel. It's sealed. Kai shakes his head. Seals are for paper, not for presents. He stands moving to a shelf of incense sticks and dried herbs. He selects a bundle wrapped in white cloth and hands it to you. Burn this when you sleep. Every night until it's delivered. You take it. It smells faintly of camphor licorice and something sour like regret stored in cedar. He leans closer. Do not let it dream with you. You nod. I won't. I'm not warning you, Courier, he says. I'm warning it. You leave the monastery shaken. You'd hoped for calm. A chant. A bit of wisdom delivered over barley tea. Instead, you feel like the scroll now weighs 5 caddies more and is watching the back of your head. You take the long path down into the valley, avoiding the shortcut through the pine woods. Too many shadows. Too many gaps between trees where things that play flutes might stand. You pass a farmer's hut. A child runs out to greet you. She offers you a sprig of mint and asks, do you carry the letter that makes dreams talk? You freeze. Who told you that? She giggles. The man with the square eyes. You blink. Square. She nods solemnly, and his voice was made of paper. You offer a smile. I hope he visits other couriers soon. She runs off laughing. You walk faster. By the time you reach the river crossing, your robe is streaked with mud, and your satchel feels like it's absorbing the tension from your spine. The ferry is waiting a flat-bottomed raft guided by rope across a broad, slow-moving stretch of water. The ferryman is asleep, hat-tilted low pole resting on his shoulder like a bored spear. You clear your throat. He stirs squints at you, then glances at the satchel. You're the one, he says. You hesitate. I'm one. He grins without mirth. Close enough. The raft drifts across the river in total silence. No birds. No frogs. No wind. You stand there clutching the satchel, as though it might whisper to the water if you loosen your grip. The ferryman doesn't speak again. When you reach the far side, he just nods once and pulls away. The next town is smaller than the others, only 6 homes a shrine, and a noodle stand where the soup comes pre-salted with gossip. You stop for a bowl. You need it. Food grounds you. The cook ladles the broth and says, careful on the next leg. They say the wind doesn't blow there. That's not unusual. She eyes you. It refuses to. You don't ask for clarification. You finish the soup, leave a coin, walk on. The sun has dipped lower now, the light fading from gold to silver. You walk until the trees return tall and skeletal. Their branches have no leaves. This grove never grows them. Too much shadow. Too much hush. As you pass beneath their canopy, you hear the first note. Flute. Then a second. Then silence. You freeze. You listen. A third note. No. Instead, a voice. Yours. Whispered. Reversed. You spin around. Nothing. But the scroll bag is warm again. Not hot, but unmistakably warm. And this time, so is your back. You keep walking. You don't look back. You never look back. The room is cold. Not from weather. The fire in the stove is still burning, casting a dull orange glow onto the wooden floor. No, this cold is the other kind. The kind that arrives without air, without sound, without reason. It just is. the kind you feel in your spine before your brain has a chance to object. You sit still, staring at the spot where the cube had been. Gone. No scratch marks, no trace. Just the faint depression in the wood grain where it once rested. Proof that it was ever real at all. You rise slowly, scan the room. The scroll satchel is untouched. You open it. Count the contents. All 6 scrolls present and intact. The red string scroll still on top. Still sealed. But your hands shake a little now. You dress without thought, every motion mechanical. Your fingers tie the robe cords with the muscle memory of someone who's done this 1,000 times. You run a comb through your hair once, maybe twice, then stop halfway. There's a sliver of red thread stuck to your sleeve. You stare at it for a long time. Eventually, you leave the tavern. It's still deep night, outside stars scattered across the sky like spilled salt. The border town is asleep except for a stray cat atop a roof beam and one lantern still burning in the shrine at the far end of the street. You head there, not because you're religious, but because right now it's the only place with answers you can pretend to understand. The shrine is tiny, barely large enough to sit cross-legged inside, dedicated to the god of messengers, an obscure spirit whose only known statue shows him riding a pigeon while holding a scroll in one hand and a teacup in the other. There's a bowl of incense stubs, a plate of old dumplings, and a few pebbles lined up neatly along the windowsill. You sit down, close your eyes, and try to breathe. You don't know how long you stay like that. Long enough for the cold to settle deeper. Long enough to forget whether the cube had one face left unturned. Then softly you hear it. Not flute, not crying. Just paper turning. You open your eyes and see that one scroll has unrolled itself slightly. Not the red string. Scroll 3, the one with the agricultural notice. You pick it up carefully. The seal is intact, but the edge of the parchment curls outward, like it's been read, or like it's waiting. You unroll it an inch, just enough to see the top line, but there is no text, just a single black dot, centered. Ink maybe, burn mark. You don't touch it. You rewrap the scroll press the seal gently back into place and retie the cord. Then you do something you never do. You say a prayer, not to the messenger god, to whoever is watching. Please don't test me tonight. When morning comes, you're already packed. Biozi is less enthused. He glares at you with the full weight of a beast who knows what's coming. A mountain pass fog rain, and probably a lecture from a shrine guardian who thinks horses are smarter than donkeys. The innkeeper doesn't charge you. He just stares at your bag, nods once, and mutters something about gravity shifting. You leave the town without fanfare. The trail east winds steeply upward, cutting through stone outcrops and thin alpine woods. The clouds hang low and gray, brushing the tops of bamboo groves with languid fingers. Mist drapes over everything. Biozi's hooves make hollow clops against the trail, and your boots squish faintly. You pass 3 shrines in quick succession, all dedicated to different things, safe passage fair weather, and the smooth digestion of pickled vegetables. You bow at each, just in case. Then a sound. 3 notes. But this time, not a flute. A voice. A child's voice. Humming. You stop cold. The tune is familiar, soaked in your memory like ink in old cloth. You heard it once in a dream. Or maybe in your first year on the job when you passed that abandoned watchtower and found a broken instrument lying in the dust. You scan the trees. No one. You step forward. The humming stops. You continue climbing. Midway up the mountain, you reach the courier shelter, a small rest stop carved into the rock, little more than a lean-to with a clay hearth and a roof of woven grass. You've stayed here before. It's always been welcoming. Today, not so much. There are footprints in the dirt, but no one inside. The fire pit is cold, the water basin is overturned, and someone has scratched a single word into the support beam. Twice. You leave. You don't want to know what happens after thrice. By midday, you crest the pass. From up here, you can see the next valley lush, wide, threaded with the silver curve of a river, and dotted with distant roofs. Your next delivery is waiting down there, the monastery. It should be simple. A scroll, a handoff, a signature, but nothing's been simple for days now. As you begin the descent, you glance behind. No one, but the footprints, are now beside yours. Fresh, deep, and not yours. The lanterns of the herbalist's home fade behind you, swallowed by the dark. The sky overhead is a pale, charcoal gray stars struggling to pierce through thick, wandering clouds. The road has narrowed to little more than a footpath, now pressed between tangled hedgerows and rice terraces reflecting the moonlight like shattered mirrors. You're heading for the border town. It's the last stop before tomorrow's mountain pass, a precarious climb only attempted in good weather, and by couriers desperate to make up lost time. You, of course, fall into both categories. Biozi's hooves make soft clops on the dirt path, muffled by the damp. His ears swivel lazily, but he hasn't made a sound since you left the herbalist. That alone unnerves you. Normally, he's full of judgmental commentary in the form of sniffing, snorting, and overly loud chewing. But now, quiet. Too quiet. You tug the scroll satchel closer to your chest. The red string scroll is still sealed, still unread, still heavier than it should be. You remember what the Southern Courier said. We used to think the scrolls carried words, but maybe it's us they're carrying. You hate how much sense that makes. After another hour, the path widens. You see torchlight ahead, dim and flickering like a sleepy heartbeat. The border town appears around the curve, its perimeter marked by a split bamboo fence and 2 guards who look far too tired to question anything. You pass without incident. Inside the town is strange. It's not the architecture standard Tang layout. Stone paving low wooden eaves, strings of paper lanterns bobbing in the night breeze. It's not the people. There are a few merchants, a couple of gamblers muttering over dice, and 1 child chasing a chicken. Nothing unusual, but the atmosphere. It feels like a painting that hasn't finished drying. Like you could reach out, and your fingers would smear the edges. You stable Bayozi in the courtyard of the town tavern. It's a squat 2-story building with half its signage missing, and a menu written entirely in rhyme. The stable boy takes one look at your donkey and says, "He's seen ghosts." You stare at him. He shrugs. I can tell. Inside the tavern, the mood is off. Not bad, just sideways. Everyone is speaking too quietly. The air smells faintly of ink cloves and wet wood. A scholar is snoring in the corner with a scroll wrapped around his head like a turban. A young man is trying to convince a barmaid that he once jousted with a tax collector. A musician strums a guqin, but one of the strings is missing, so every song ends early. You take a seat near the window. You order rice wine and something with noodles. The server brings you a bowl of soup that smells like regret and fermented daikon. You eat it anyway. Then the tavern door opens, and the room goes still. A man walks in. No scroll, no bag, no badge. Just a plain brown robe slightly too short in the sleeves and sandals that look older than the Dynasty. He doesn't speak. He walks directly to your table and sits across from you without invitation. You stare. He smiles faintly. You're carrying the 4th. You don't respond. You've done well. Still you say nothing. He places a small wooden cube on the table between you. This is not a threat, he says. It's a reminder. You finally find your voice. Of what? That some messages should never be delivered. You glance down at the cube. It's carved with 1 character on each face. You recognize them. Duty, silence, memory, burden, voice, loss. You reach for it. He places his hand gently on yours. Not yet. Then he stands and walks out. You sit there a while, soup forgotten. When you finally look outside, he's gone. You collect the cube, tuck it into your satchel, and retreat upstairs to the guest room, a slanted, smoky space with a thin mattress and a cracked window that won't close all the way. You set your satchel down, then pause. The scrolls have shifted again. Not in weight, in order. The red string scroll is now on top. You did not put it there. You lie down fully clothed arms, folded scrolls in reach. The room groans with the wind, and somewhere below someone is crying softly. Maybe in the next room, maybe from the street. You don't sleep, not really. You drift. At one point, you dream. You're on a swing bridge again, but it's not raining, not shaking. It's perfectly still. Across from you stands a child holding the scroll. He opens it. Light pours out. You wake. It's still dark, but the crying has stopped. You sit up. Something's different. Your satchel is still sealed, but the cube, it's gone. You walk faster now. Not running, because that would be suspicious. But your stride lengthens. Your eyes scan the trail ahead. Your ears twitch at every broken twig, every flutter of wings. Just one flute note, not the usual 3, which somehow is worse. Baozi seems unbothered. He's chewing something again, probably moss, possibly your dignity. You resist the urge to scold him. Talking feels too loud right now. The path leads along a low ridge bordered by bamboo thickets. Their green stalks creak faintly in the breeze, and the shadows they cast ripple like water. You glance behind. No one. Nothing. Still, you swear the trees are watching you. You press on. The next destination is an outpost perched above a rice valley, a quiet cluster of wooden buildings, one of which serves as a storage hub for courier scrolls in transit. Officially, you're supposed to just pass through, maybe check and stamp your log. But unofficially, there's the scribe. Old Master Chen. He's half blind, mostly deaf, but still sharp enough to know things he absolutely shouldn't. You're hoping he'll have answers. Or at least rumors. As you descend into the valley, the smell of damp rice husks and fresh-cut stalks fills the air. Children run past carrying fishing nets and laughing about something involving ghosts and lanterns. You want to believe they're just being silly. But the way one girl points toward your satchel and then stops laughing makes you pause. You reach the outpost just as the clouds begin to thicken again. The main building is a long hall with a tiled roof, bamboo gutters, and the world's laziest dog asleep on the porch. You step over it. Inside, scrolls line the walls in perfectly organized pigeonholes. One of them squeaks when you pass. You're not sure if it's the scroll or the shelf. Master Chen sits cross-legged behind a desk carved from a single slab of cedar. His head is bent low, calligraphy brush, resting idle in his hand. He doesn't look up. "You're late," he croaks. "You always say that." It's always true. You remove your courier badge and hold it up. He finally glances at you, and then at your bag. "You've got the 4th one." "It's not a question." You nod. Red string, plum-scented. He motions you closer. You kneel before his desk. "You didn't open it." "No." "You didn't dream of it." "I don't think so." "You didn't hear it sing." You hesitate. "No." He nods slowly. Then it's still dormant. You wait. He taps his fingers on the cedar desk, then says, "There's a theory. Not official. Not written anywhere reputable. But some of us believe these scrolls aren't just messages. They're trials. Trials. To see who can carry them. Who can resist knowing. Who deserves to pass them on." You glance at your satchel. "I didn't ask for this." None of us did. You both sit in silence for a moment. The wind rattles the paper screens. Then he says, "Do you know about the courier from Luoyang?" You shake your head. "Carried one just like yours. Made it all the way to the palace gates. Collapsed on the steps. Doctors opened the scroll to see if it was a medical emergency. It was a love poem." "That's sweet." "It was 8,000 characters long and written in code. It took 3 years to decipher. Started 2 wars." You blink. "That's not sweet." "No." He hands you something, a small slip of parchment with a single character inked onto it. The brushwork is exquisite. "What is it, you ask?" "Password," he says, "in case you ever need to prove you resisted." "Resisted what?" He smiles. "That's the question, isn't it?" You leave the outpost quietly. Outside, Baozi has made friends with the lazy porch dog who has offered him a stick in a gesture of diplomacy. You decide not to interrupt. The road takes you through more farmland, where oxen plod through fields, and farmers wave at you with the resigned cheer of people who know both rain and taxes are inevitable. You nod, wave, and continue. Then you hear it. Not a flute. A buzzing, like flies. But not quite. You turn a bend and come face to face with a caravan of scroll-bearers from the southern circuit. 5 riders on horseback, red sashes fluttering from their belts. Their satchels are larger, heavier. One of them, the leader, a woman with a scar over her brow, slows when she sees you. "You're from the north route." You nod. She eyes your bag. "You've still got it." You nod again. She leans in, lowering her voice. "We delivered ours last week." The recipient's hair turned white overnight. "Why?" No one knows. He won't speak. The others are quiet now, their horses stamping nervously. "Be careful," she says. "We used to think the scrolls carried words. But maybe it's us they're carrying." With that, they ride on. You stand there a moment longer, the wind lifting the corner of your robe. Then Baozi nudges you gently. "Right." You keep moving. Evening falls like a curtain. You reach your next destination, a quiet village at the foot of a shrine mountain. The lanterns are already lit, casting warm pools of light onto stone steps and worn wood. You check your satchel. One scroll remains to be delivered tonight. A temple dispatch for the herbalist. Should be simple. You climb the stairs to the herbalist's door. Knock once. Wait. She answers, a tall woman with sleeves too long and eyes that look like they've already read your scroll from inside your head. You're early, she says. I'm punctual. Rare, she replies. You hand over the scroll. She accepts it with both hands. Doesn't open it. Instead, she bows. Be safe. The wind is rising. She disappears inside. As you descend the steps, the lanterns flicker. You pause. There it is. Flute. 3 notes. Played softly from the trees. You whisper. I hear you. But you don't stop. You walk faster. Baozi follows. Neither of you looks back. The path flattens finally. After the ridge, the forest, the scroll drop, and that unsettling note from the boy-turned-smoke bomb, you're back on even ground. It's a narrow road carved into a terraced hillside bordered by stone retaining walls and ancient peach trees whose blossoms have long since fallen. Ahead lies your next stop, the Monk's Inn. Not a monastery. Not even particularly holy. Just a roadside noodle shop run by retired monks who gave up chanting for dumpling folding. They still wear their robes, but with the casual looseness of men who once lived under strict silence and now have opinions. You and Baozi arrive around midday. The wooden sign swings lazily in the breeze, painted with a single calligraphic character that supposedly means harmony, but honestly looks more like soup. There's a scroll tied to the doorpost advertising today's specials. Noodles hand-pulled unless Brother Tan gets lazy, pickled radish fresh, debate about Li-Bai ongoing. You tie Baozi to a weathered hitching post, where he immediately begins investigating a bag of onions. You slap his nose gently and head inside. The interior is warm, dark, and smells of sesame oil, old incense, and stewed daikon. 3 monks are seated around a table playing some complex game involving marbles, bamboo slats, and passive-aggressive commentary. Brother Tan looks up. Courier. You're late. I'm never late, you reply. I'm differently punctual. He waves you to the counter. You want noodles or poetry, whichever is less salty. He smirks and slaps a bowl onto the counter. The noodles are wide, chewy, swimming in a rich broth that has probably violated 3 temple codes of conduct. You sit thankful for the chance to unweight your legs and pretend for just a moment you're not hauling sealed messages across potentially cursed terrain. The monks talk while you eat. You heard they're teaching pigeons again. Pigeons are unreliable. Owls are better. Too judgmental. Have you ever been stared down by an owl they know? You slurp louder, trying not to laugh into your broth. Then Brother Fan, the quiet one, with the scar on his hand, leans closer. You're carrying one, aren't you? You pause chopsticks midair. What makes you say that? You flinch every time we talk about birds. You lower your bowl. What do you know about red string scrolls? Fan shrugs. Only what the old abbot told me. That they're less about what they say and more about who opens them. You frown. Meaning, some things, they unlock the reader. Not the other way around. You let that sink in while finishing your meal. Outside, the wind stirs again. You notice the prayer chimes above the door aren't moving. Strange, given the gusts. You settle your tab with 2 copper coins and a poem about sore feet. Brother Tan accepts it with a solemn nod. Best haiku we've had all week. Before you leave, Brother Fan hands you a fresh ink brush wrapped in silk. In case you need to write something down you don't want to forget. You nod your thanks and step outside. Baozi looks up from a pile of beet stems and blinks twice in what you think is approval. You continue eastward. The path curves into a series of low ridges, the sky clouding again, with that soft, even gray that makes the whole world feel like a watercolor. You pass a small shrine to the wind god. A feather is tied to its roof beam, fluttering despite the still air. You don't stop. Something about that feather unnerves you. You reach a fork marked by a peculiar sculpture, a clay pig holding a flute mounted on a wooden pole. You whisper, very funny, and take the left path as instructed by your route map. This trail leads through a pine glade where the needles carpet the ground so thickly it muffles your steps. The air is cool. A dog barks in the distance, then goes silent. Then without warning rain. Not a drizzle. A sudden, impatient downpour that soaks your robe in seconds and turns the path into a slurry. You scramble for your oilskin wrap and quickly drape it over the satchel. The scrolls must stay dry. You can get wet. You always do. You find shelter beneath a half-collapsed pavilion, its wooden beams carved with travel blessings and graffiti. Xinjiang couriers do it faster. Don't trust scrolls with fruit smells. If you see the flute ghost, run backward. That last one is underlined, twice. You huddle there until the rain eases. Baozi stands beside you like a monument to indifference. His ears twitch occasionally, but that's about the extent of his emotion. When you finally emerge, the world feels scrubbed clean. The trees drip steadily. Your sandals squish. But ahead, smoke curls upward in a lazy spiral. A traveler's rest stop. It's a covered hut built on stilts overlooking a shallow creek. Inside, a scribe in travel-stained robes is drying scrolls over a fire, grumbling to himself about inferior paper and superior mud. His eyes widen when he sees you. Please tell me you have parchment. You shake your head. Not unless you want it pre-written. He sighs and lifts a half-ruined scroll ink, running in tragic swirls. This was a birthday invitation. Now it looks like a treaty from hell. You offer him a spare ink stick, and he nods gratefully. You sit across from him watching the fire crackle. Then disaster. A clumsy knock of his elbow and his inkwell tips black liquid arcing through the air like a slow-motion horror story. It lands across your scroll bag. You leap up, yanking it away, but a single black smear now runs along the outer wrapping of scroll 3. You carefully unwrap it, still sealed. The ink didn't penetrate. You exhale. The scribe looks horrified. I'll compensate you. You wave him off. It's fine. I've ruined worse. It's true. Once during your training, you dropped an edict into a vat of tofu. It took weeks to remove the scent from the royal seal. Still, you pause now to check each scroll. 7 in total. 6 intact. The red string. Clean. Cool to the touch again. You almost feel disappointed. But as you sit there repacking the bag, something catches your eye, scratched into the wood of the fire hut, nearly invisible. Flute plays thrice. Answer not. You trace it gently with your finger. The scribe sees you do it. They say it's a curse, he mutters. The sound's not music, it's memory. You don't ask what that means. You don't want to know. You set back out the fire warm behind you, the scroll bag heavier again even though it shouldn't be. And somewhere up the trail, one flute note plays. Just one. The riverside district fades behind you as you and Baozi follow the narrow trail that hugs the edge of a cliff. Below, the water churns in lazy spirals, dark green and glinting, where the sun finds its way through the clouds. Occasionally, you hear laughter from passing fishing boats, men in wide hats tossing nets and singing off-key. You envy their rhythm. Your route now takes you toward one of the less official stops, a place known to few, recorded in no ledger, but mentioned in hushed tones during courier training. The Silk letter drop, a halfway point between sanctioned checkpoints. Technically unsupervised, entirely unacknowledged, and yet, somehow, everyone knows about it. It's nestled at the base of a cypress grove, just past the bend in the old pilgrimage road. A smooth boulder marks the entrance round, and oddly warm to the touch, like it's storing sunlight for someone in need. You press your hand to it and wait. From behind the trees, a woman appears. She wears a gray robe that drapes like fog, and has eyes that don't blink enough. You know her only as the Widow of Letters. Everyone calls her that. No one asks who made her a widow, or whether the title is symbolic. You have something for me, she says without preamble. You nod. Reaching into your satchel, you withdraw a scroll bound not with wax or twine, but with silk thread and a single knot red looped twice. No markings, no address, no official order. Just scent musk plum and faint sandalwood. You extend it. She doesn't take it. You must leave it, she says, pointing to a shallow clay bowl nestled beneath a pine tree. You do as instructed. The scroll rests inside the bowl like a sleeping bird. She nods. You may sit. So you sit, legs crossed, back to the cypress bark. Baozi, not trusting anything about this situation, stays standing, but munches noisily on some moss. The Widow of Letters brings out 2 cups of tea. You have no idea where she got them. The liquid inside smells of dried chrysanthemum and something sharper fermented orange peel, perhaps. You're not to ask what's inside it, she says. I wasn't going to, but you want to. You sip the tea. It's bitter but warm. There's silence for a while. Birds call out, then go quiet again. Somewhere overhead, a kite screeches. Some of them carry poison, she says casually. You pause. The kites. No, the scrolls. You cough. A little too forcefully. I've carried 4, she continues. 1 sang, 1 wept, 1 glowed, 1 never arrived. You glance toward the bowl where the scroll still rests. Historians still argue whether the Tang court ever truly sanctioned these deliveries, she says. Some say they were the Empress's private messages. Others claim it was the monks at Wutai testing spiritual interference. You tilt your head. Spiritual interference. Whether a message can carry more than words, she says. Intent, emotion, memory. You sip your tea. What about curses? She smiles. Oh, always, but usually mild. Warts, sleepwalking, unscheduled weeping, comforting. She stands, moves to the bowl, and picks up the scroll with 2 fingers. She doesn't open it. She simply disappears into the trees. You sit there a while longer, unsure if you're waiting for her return or for something else. Baozi snorts. You take that as a cue. Back on the road, the sun has climbed higher, baking the path into hard-packed clay. The next leg leads toward a town known mostly for its tofu and inconvenient politics. You've got 2 scrolls left for delivery before nightfall. Easy in theory. You pass a series of worn prayer flags strung between trees, their colors faded, flapping lazily in the breeze. A hawker on the roadside offers candied lotus seeds. You buy a handful, share them with Baozi, who immediately drops his portion in disgust. You eat them anyway. Then the road forks again, one side descending into a ravine, the other cutting across a narrow ridge. According to your map, and by map, we mean a badly sketched piece of parchment that looks like it was drawn by a goat. With artistic ambitions, you're supposed to take the ridge path. It's a mistake. You don't realize this until the ground gives a subtle lurch beneath you, and you realize the path is built over loose shale. Baozi digs his hooves and eyes wide. You both freeze. You've heard stories. One courier fell into a ravine when a squirrel startled his mule. Another vanished entirely while navigating the ridgeline in the rain. That one returned 2 years later with perfect calligraphy skills, and no memory of who he was. You take a deep breath, shift your weight slowly, and guide Baozi 1 careful step at a time. The shale crunches beneath you, but holds. Mostly. Halfway across, you hear it again. Flute music. This time it's closer. And layered. 3 notes then, 3 more. Harmony. You turn. Nothing. No trees. No people. No source. You grip the satchel. The last scroll, the normal one, not red-stringed, not enchanted, just a farming report, is humming. You blink. It stops. You both finish the ridge walk in tense silence, feet aching, mouths dry. Finally, you reach solid ground again. A young boy appears from behind a bush and hands you a note. You blink at him. Who are you? Messenger, he replies, then sprints away like a startled duck. You open the note. It reads, You are being followed. Do not deliver tonight. No name, no seal. You crumple the note and toss it into the underbrush, because if you don't, you're not a courier anymore. You're a coward with a backpack full of problems. You straighten your back, retie your satchel, and whisper to no one in particular. Let's see what happens. You wake before dawn to the sound of roosters, a sloshing bucket, and a donkey braying like he's been denied breakfast by divine decree. Baozi is in fact correct. He has not been fed yet. The tavern girl, now in a robe and half asleep herself, is hauling a pail of leftover rice and vegetable scraps toward the stable yard. Baozi eyes her with a desperation that borders on theatrical. You stretch bones, creaking shoulders sore from sleeping curled around the satchel. You didn't risk a room. You slept by the fire with your back against a post, one eye half open all night. You tell yourself it was the scroll bag's fault. But if you're honest, it was the flute. The same notes, every few hours. 3, and always from just outside. But no one else heard it, or claimed not to. You slip on your sandals, wipe down your robe, and nod to the chess-playing old men who are still at it, though the sugar cubes have melted into abstract art. One grunts at you. You take that as a blessing. Outside, Baozi is chewing dramatically, eyes narrowed. You pat his neck and tighten the scroll satchel across your shoulder. The red string scroll is warm again. Not hot, just noticeably alive. Today, your first destination is the Riverside District. A tiny cluster of tiled roof homes pressed against a cliff, with a shrine to Kuan Yin and a bathhouse that doubles as a gossip nexus. But first, you'll need to cross the Pine Hollow. The hollow is a forested cut through the hills, infamous among couriers. It floods in spring burns and summer fogs in autumn and freezes in winter. You get none of the benefits and all of the consequences. Still, it's the shortest route. You nudge Baozi forward, heading out of the hamlet as the first fingers of sunlight stretch over the treetops. You pass the shrine, leave a coin in the offering bowl, and whisper the same quiet phrase. No rips, no slips, no spirits. Baozi sneezes. He's ready. The pine hollow begins gently enough, winding through gnarled trees, the air filled with damp bark and the earthy scent of wet moss. The road is narrow but walkable, the kind of path that makes you nostalgic for things you've never lived through. Bamboo thickets rustle in the distance. A deer watches you pass with saintly indifference. Then comes the fog. Not a polite swirling mist. A full curtain of ghost silk air, so dense you can't see more than 5 steps ahead. You reach for the lead cord and walk beside Baozi, hand brushing his flank for reassurance his not yours. The pine needles fall in a gentle rain, dusting your shoulders. Somewhere water drips. Not a stream. A leak. Like the sky is perforated. You hear something? Not flute notes this time. Whispered words. Not supposed. Carry. You stop. Listen. Only chosen. You glance behind. Nothing. Just fog. Trees. The sound of your own breath. Baozi shifts nervously. You move on faster now until the trees part slightly, and you find yourself at a fork in the path. The left road leads downhill toward the old stone bridge, moss-covered crooked, but still standing. The right, a newer trail, smoother but longer by several lie. Tradition says couriers always take the left path, but you hesitate. That voice. You feel the satchel shift. The scrolls aren't jostling, they're aligning. You choose left. The bridge appears like a ghost. Ancient, slippery, and just wide enough for one donkey, and one deeply concerned civil servant. As you cross, you see offerings piled at its edges, dried fruits, incense stubs, bits of red ribbon tied to the railings. This is a spirit crossing. You didn't know that before. You do now. You step carefully. Midway across, Baozi stops. You freeze. He stares down. You follow his gaze. Beneath the bridge, water rushes, but in the reflection, you see figures. Not shadows. Not tricks of light. Full forms. Robed. Walking the opposite direction. One of them carries a satchel just like yours. You look up. Nothing. Just fog. You don't speak. You finish crossing. On the far side, you find a small stone marker etched with Tang characters worn with time. You kneel and brush away dirt, revealing the inscription. May what is carried return unbroken. May what is written be read only by eyes meant to see. A chill runs down your back. You press on. By late morning, the fog has burned off and the trees begin to thin. You emerge into a stretch of terraced hills where villagers plant tea and sweet potatoes in stair-step fields. Children wave at you from the terraces, shouting things like, "Is that donkey famous? And you missed the festival by 2 days." You smile and wave. Baozi brays, which they interpret as a yes. You follow the trail to the Riverside District, a serene place where tiled roofs reflect sunlight like black mirrors, and lanterns hang even in daylight, swaying lazily on the breeze. You tie Baozi near the bathhouse and head into the shrine. Inside, a quiet monk sits brushing incense ash into perfect spirals. He doesn't look up as you enter. You have one, he says. You freeze. He gestures toward the satchel. You carry the red string message. You nod. He motions for you to kneel. You do. He lights a single stick of incense and places it in front of you. Do not read it. Do not dream of it. I haven't, you say. He places a small bronze token in your hand, shaped like an open eye. Keep it near. There are things that slip between paths. You thank him, bow, and leave. Outside, you breathe again. Then you hear it. 3 notes. The flute. But this time it's right behind you. You spin. Just a boy barefoot holding a reed pipe, wide-eyed and confused. He scurries off muttering about practicing for the harvest fair. You exhale. Maybe. Just maybe. It really is nothing. Twilight settles across the landscape like a silk veil, soft, cool, and just a little unsettling. The air grows damp again, and the breeze shifts from gentle to mischievous tugging at your sleeves, and tousling Baozi's ears, which he does not appreciate. You've passed the relay station, declined the aerodynamic half-shaved mare, and are now winding your way into forested foothills. It's the kind of terrain that would be lovely if you weren't carrying 7 potentially explosive scrolls and a donkey with a digestive system you no longer trust. The road here becomes narrow and uneven, littered with exposed roots and loose rocks. You have to dismount frequently, leading Baozi with one hand and steadying your satchel with the other. It's work not glamorous, not poetic, but necessary. Like most courier tasks, the job is 90% walking uphill and 10% arguing with birds about directional signage. The trees close in overhead, tall pines and cypresses their canopies blotting out the lingering light. You hear a faint rustling and pause. Baozi pauses too. Together, you listen. There it is again, a low, irregular crunch. Too slow to be a deer, too heavy for a fox. Could be a wolf. Could also be a very judgmental badger. You grip your satchel tighter and push on. If something is following you, it's doing so politely at a distance, not intruding, but present. The wind begins to whistle, slipping between branches and stones like a warning. You reach the forest's heart, where a stone milestone stands chipped and moss-covered, marking the border between provinces. This is a no-man's land, technically, between prefectures, which means technically no laws, or as your instructor once put it, if you get mugged here, write your own report. You rest briefly beside the stone, drinking from your gourd and offering Baozi a wedge of yam cake. He accepts it with side-eye and immediately drops half of it in protest. The forest is too quiet now. No birdsong, no cicadas, just the whisper of pine needles underfoot and the occasional suspicious crunch from behind. Then a sound flute music. You freeze. It's the same 3 notes, the same spacing, the same haunting echo that you first heard this morning. You turn quickly. No one. Not a soul on the road. Not even a squirrel. You grip the scroll bag instinctively. The red string scroll is warm against your side. Warmer than before. Historians still argue whether flute signals were used by Tang couriers for coordination in difficult terrain, or whether it's just something we made up because ghost stories sell better. Either way, no one's ever found official documentation. You continue forward. The trees thin. You emerge into a clearing just as the moon peaks above the horizon, pale and slightly egg-shaped tonight. And there it is, the swing bridge. You sigh. The infamous swing bridge suspended high above a chasm with a rushing creek far below. It sways in the breeze like a drunk uncle at a wedding. The ropes creak even when no one's touching them, as though they're thinking about collapsing. Baozi stops short, digging in his hooves. Oh no, you say. We're doing this. He shakes his head. A definitive no. You try reasoning. You try bribery. You even try invoking the Emperor's will. Nothing. In the end, it takes a full minute of awkward encouragement, and the promise of 2 turnip buns and a salt massage before he grudgingly sets one hoof onto the bridge. It groans, loudly. You hold your breath and step on gripping the rope railings with sweaty palms. Each step sways the bridge. Not a lot. Just enough to feel like the universe is questioning your choices. The wind picks up. You are halfway across when you feel it wait behind you. Not Baozi's. Something else. You don't turn around. Not right away. You focus on the boards, the rope, the knot beneath your hand. One at a time. Then softly there's a whisper. You don't catch the words, just the tone. Gentle. Familiar. You turn. Nothing. Just Baozi. Looking startled. Possibly at you. Possibly at something else. You make it across in one piece, but your heartbeat disagrees. On the far side, the land drops into dense reeds and pools of mist that cling low to the earth. This is ghost territory according to the locals. They say messengers who die on the job wander here whispering to the scrolls they never got to deliver. You laugh nervously. Glad I'm not one of those. Baozi snorts. You both walk a little faster. Soon lights appear ahead, tiny orange glows like fireflies. A village, a house, a bandit trap, with excellent ambiance. As you approach it resolves into a hamlet, 3 homes, a shrine, and a tavern so small its sign is nailed to a goat. You tether Baozi outside the tavern. He finds a turnip peel and makes peace with existence. Inside the tavern smells like bean curd, roasted garlic, and mystery meat. A single lantern flickers on a corner table where 2 old men are playing chess with sugar cubes. The innkeeper is asleep behind the counter, but a serving girl appears and gestures you to a low table. You ask for rice wine and dumplings. She brings a bowl of each, plus a bonus pickle. You take it as a win. Halfway through your second cup, a shadow enters. Another courier. Older with gray in his beard and a scar across his cheek. He sees your scroll bag and nods. West line, he asks. East, you reply. He sits. Doesn't ask permission. just lowers himself onto the mat and stares at your red string scroll. You have one, he says. You nod. He leans forward. Did it hum? You blink. What? The scroll, he says quietly. Sometimes they hum, low and soft, like a cat or a spinning top. You shake your head. Lucky, he mutters, sipping from his own flask. Mine did, whole trip, didn't sleep for 2 nights. Where was it going, you ask? He shrugs, didn't ask, didn't want to know. You both sit in silence, warmed by rice wine and the shared understanding of people who've carried messages they didn't write to people. They'll never meet, with consequences they'll never understand. Outside, the wind rises again, and somewhere in the trees behind the tavern, a flute plays 3 notes. Again. You both finish your drinks in silence. The sun has shifted now, casting longer shadows across the road ahead. You notice how the light dances through the leaves of the jujube trees, lining the path, warm, amber, almost syrupy. There's a sleepy hush to the land, that golden hour quiet, as if the countryside itself is pouring a cup of tea and settling in for a nap. You've got a long way to go before that's an option for you. Ahead, the trees thin, and your ears catch a familiar clatter. The metallic ring of bells, the stomp of hooves, and the unmistakable complaints of bureaucrats. You've arrived at your first proper inspection post, a full-fledged checkpoint built by the Ministry of Communications, probably funded with 300 strings of copper coins and a prayer. It's a stone structure with a wooden upper floor where pigeons strut along the windowsills like smug overseers. A pair of guards with equally majestic mustaches step forward as you dismount. Courier Seal 1 says with a yawn. You offer your copper badge. He inspects it like it might explode. Bag. You unsling the scroll satchel. A third guard appears and snatches it with the practiced finesse of someone who has definitely dropped scrolls before. He waddles off toward a nearby table where an official with an imperial ledger awaits. You know the type, robes too clean. Brush always too wet, a permanent frown, like he's been chewing bamboo shoots his whole life. Courier 1871. He asks, not looking up. That's me. 3 imperial-class scrolls, 4 regional notices, and 1 red string irregular. You hesitate. Yes. He raises his eyes slowly. You know protocol for red strings. You nod. No reading. No rewrapping. Deliver by hand. No third-party contact. Good. He goes back to his notes. We had 1 go missing last month. Courier tripped over a goose and landed in a rice pond. Seal dissolved. 3 arrests. You offer your sincerest not me face. He waves for the guards to proceed with the inspection. Each scroll is carefully removed, weighed by hand, and the seal checked under a smudge lamp. A scribe records every detail with the joy of someone who could have been a poet, but chose ink taxes instead. Then comes the problem. One of the officials, young, sweaty, and far too eager, gasps. Scroll 6, he yelps. There's a smudge. You frown. What kind of smudge? Here he thrusts the scroll forward, finger shaking. A small, dark streak trails near the corner, barely visible. That's tea, you say. The official reels back like you've confessed to treason. This is a Grade 2 agricultural request. It contains vital information about yam tariffs. You blink. It's going to the guildmaster in Wuxi. He drinks worse things for breakfast. Still, they have procedures. They bring out a fresh copy scroll. They transcribe. You're asked to witness and confirm the replica. They wrap it in silk, reseal it, and stamp it with a supplemental approval sigil, an adorable bunny for some reason. You're told not to ask. Meanwhile, another courier arrives behind you, a girl from the southern route. She looks younger, probably new, with calligraphy-stained fingers and a quill stuck behind one ear. You nod at each other the universal I also carry nonsense across impossible terrain acknowledgement. She leans over and whispers, They're training pigeons now, to carry mini scrolls. You glance at the pigeons perched above. One blinks. You do not blink back. Historians still argue whether the Tang pigeon program ever truly succeeded. Some records suggest messages were sent over hundreds of LI. Others say the birds just ate the scrolls and wandered into noodle stalls. Inspection over, you repack your bag with fresh string. Biozi uses this lull to flirt aggressively with a basket of carrots tied to a vendor's cart. As you mount up, the official stops you one last time. By the way, he says scroll 4 smells sweet. You sigh. I know. Back on the road, the light begins to fade. You pass into a denser grove, shadows creeping up from the ground, like ink on wet parchment. A breeze stirs the branches overhead. You hum to yourself not a song exactly, but something to fill the space between your thoughts and the rustle of leaves. Then you hear it hooves, not yours. Another courier. You pause. Listen. The sound vanishes. You urge Baozi on. Eventually you arrive at the next relay station, a small thatched hut beside a fenced pasture. This is where you're meant to change horses. Technically. In reality, most couriers just check the roster, drink a little barley ale, and try to convince the stable master to skip the paperwork. The stable master today is not the usual old drunk. It's a younger man with hair tied high and a robe so patched it could qualify as a quilt. He steps forward and claps his hands. Courier 1871. Excellent, we've got your replacement mount ready. He gestures toward the paddock. You stare. There stands your next ride, a chestnut mare with one eye a limp and half her body shaved clean. What happened, you ask? He beams. She's faster this way, less wind resistance. You look at the mare. The mare looks at you. Baozi huffs, clearly feeling superior. You can take her, the stable master insists. Or keep the donkey. Your choice. You sigh, check the sky, and opt for loyalty. You give Baozi a tired nod. He raises his head proudly and promptly sneezes on your sleeve. You trade out some supplies, fresh wax, a spool of twine, and a biscuit that smells vaguely like old socks, and continue onward. The path leads through low hills now studded with wildflowers, and the occasional shrine to long-forgotten minor gods. You pass a stone stele cracked down the center. Half the inscription remains. Be swift as ink, silent as the brush. You nod, whispering, and hopefully less messy than either. The sun dips further gold, draining into dusk. Somewhere nearby, a frog croaks 3 times. A good omen, or maybe it's just a frog with a flair for theatrics. You check the scroll satchel again. The red string scroll hasn't moved, but it feels heavier, as though it's collecting shadows. You ride a little faster. The road straightens as you descend into the lower valley, and the morning finally begins to shake off its damp gray shroud. Patches of blue sky peek through drifting clouds, like forgotten silk scraps pinned to the heavens. Somewhere behind you, the flute melody has stopped, but it echoes in your head like a half-remembered tune. You nudge Baozi forward. He grumbles but complies, hooves striking the stone path with a rhythm you've come to find oddly comforting. It's not music exactly, but it's the closest thing you'll get out here. About an hour later, just as the sun climbs past the trees and begins to warm your back, you spot it, the first checkpoint of the day. A squat wooden pavilion with faded red paint and moss creeping up its pillars, guarded by 2 men in badly fitting uniforms. One has a loose tooth, and the other has a goose. Not metaphorically an actual goose which sits beside his stool like a feathered lieutenant. As you approach, Loose Tooth squints at your courier badge and sighs like you've interrupted his nap. Goose Guy doesn't look up. He's busy scratching his name into the post's ledger with a stick dipped in soot. Name says Loose Tooth. You give it. Origin. You name the village. He chews this over for a bit, as if trying to remember whether it exists. Destination. You recite the list. Janyang Wuxi Valley, the southern monastery. He grunts. Anything forbidden? You raise an eyebrow. What would that even be? Poetry mocking the Empress, he says. Or dried scorpions. Or hair dolls. No. He waves you through, but Goose Guy suddenly pipes up, still not looking at you. Wait. You stop. Baozi sighs. Goose Guy finally lifts his eyes, staring not at your face, but at the bag slung over your shoulder. The 4th scroll. You freeze. What about it? The seal looks warm. You blink. Is this going to be a thing now? He stands and walks over slowly, like a sage contemplating the meaning of leaves. The goose waddles behind him, flapping once. You remove the scroll and hand it over. He holds it under his nose, sniffs. It smells plum. Yes, he nods. That's how you know it's real. Loose Tooth snorts. You're such a creep. You repack the scroll. The guards mark your passage on a bamboo tablet and wave you on, still arguing about whether or not all real scrolls should smell like fruit. The path widens past the checkpoint, giving way to gentler terrain. You allow yourself to relax a little. Birds dart between flowering shrubs, and the occasional dragonfly zips past your ear like a dart from heaven. You spot a shrine bell in the distance, and a painted sign warning against highway haiku contests. A pity they were just getting good. You and Baozi crest a low ridge, and there it is, the halfway T-stop. It's not fancy. A sagging lean-to with 3 wooden stools, a thatched roof, and a giant pot of boiling water that never seems to run out. But it's run by the widow Chung, and that makes all the difference. She's maybe 80, or 40. It's hard to tell. She appears as you approach towel slung over one shoulder, holding a ladle like a scepter. "Well, look who's still alive," she says. Barely you reply. She gestures to the pot. "Want noodles or millet cake?" "You choose noodles. Always noodles." You sit steam rising around you and let the scroll bag rest against the bench. Widow Chung slaps a bowl of noodles down and disappears again, only to return moments later with a plate of pickled cucumber and a story. "There was a postman once," she says, "who forgot a scroll at my bench. It contained an ode to a goose. 3 years later it became a national anthem." You nod. "Sounds about right." You slurp the noodles spicy and salty with just enough ginger to make your nose run. Baozi chomps a leftover millet bun on the ground beside you. A chicken pecks near his tail, utterly unfazed. The widow leans in. "Did you hear about the scroll that made people sleep?" You pause mid-slurp. "It was delivered to a general during a border siege," she continues. "He opened it, read 3 lines, and fell asleep on the battlefield. Snored so loud the enemy thought it was thunder, and retreated." "Is that documented?" She grins. "It's in the footnotes." You laugh and some noodles escape your nose. Baozi looks mortified on your behalf. As you prepare to leave, she presses something into your hand, a small slip of paper with a drawing of a snail. "For luck," she says. "But only if you don't look at it." You nod solemnly. "Understood." You saddle up and continue down the path, noodles warming your belly, the snail talisman hidden in your sleeve. The next leg is quiet, peaceful even. You pass fields of sesame flowers and narrow bridges made from old ship planks. An ox yawns at you from behind a stone wall. A girl on a cart offers you a dried persimmon. You take it. She doesn't ask for payment, just sings a little tune as she rolls away. As you approach a river crossing, you hear shouting. 2 other couriers stand near the bank, arguing over a broken ferry rope. One is wet to the waist. The other is holding a scroll aloft like it's a sword. "Stop moving," wet courier yells. "I have to move." "It's part of the route," dry courier yells back. They notice you and wave frantically. "Do you have extra cord?" they ask in unison. You check. Just a length of silk thread meant for emergency repairs. You offer it. They use it to secure the ferry raft tie, one end to a boulder, and gesture for you to cross next. You do gingerly. The river gurgles beneath your feet as you guide Baozi across the creaking planks. Halfway through, a fish jumps. Baozi jumps harder. You nearly lose your balance. On the far bank, you thank the couriers. They're heading south while you go east. You part ways with a nod and a mutual complaint about stamp quotas. The sun begins to lower behind the hills. You've covered decent ground. The scroll bag feels a little lighter, though you know that's an illusion. Or maybe it's the snail charm doing its mysterious work. You glance back at the 4th scroll, the red string one. Still there. Still sealed. Still faintly fruity. You don't like it, but you respect it. You descend the hill slowly, your toes gripping inside your soggy sandals like claws. Baozi follows with the reluctant energy of someone deeply offended by gravity. The slope is slick, but you know where the stones are hidden beneath the muck, just left of the crooked pine 2 steps past the oddly heart-shaped rock. You learned that the hard way after a spectacular fall your first week. They still talk about it in the tavern. Apparently, you yelped like a startled goose. At the bottom of the slope, the road levels out and bends east toward a sleepy hamlet surrounded by paddies. This is where the mailbag rituals begin in earnest. You hitch Baozi outside a tea vendor's shack with a grunt and a whispered promise to bring him some turnip scraps later. He grunts back, which may or may not be agreement. Inside the shack, the air is thick with steam ink and boiled cabbage. It smells like bureaucracy and breakfast. A hunched clerk sits at a low desk, his face nearly buried in scrolls. He doesn't look up. "Name," he mumbles. You give your official courier tag, a copper token etched with your route number, and a poorly carved dragon that looks more like a fat snake. He finally peers at you with the suspicion of a man who once delivered a scroll to the wrong emperor and never recovered. He motions for your satchel. You lay it down with reverence, then wait as he inspects each wax seal one by one, holding them to a lamp like gemstones. His brows knit. He makes a sound like a dying frog. "This one looks warm." You blink. It was under my arm. He mutters something about armpits and disrespect, then stamps your travel slip with a red character meaning cleared, though you swear the strokework is passive-aggressive. Now comes the tea, salted and lukewarm. You sip it slowly while scanning the wall scroll behind the desk. It's a Confucian aphorism that reads, "Order in the empire begins with punctual post." The brushstrokes are elegant, the ink aged to the color of dried blood. Beneath it, someone's scribbled, "Unless there's rain." You take inventory of your remaining supplies: 3 spare wax sticks, 2 silk cords, 1 dry sock, and a packet of pickled plum slices that now taste faintly of saddle. Your inkwell is nearly empty, and your brush has been chewed probably by Biozi. He denies everything. You refill your water gourd at a mossy stone basin outside the shack, where a pigeon watches you with unnatural focus. There's a rumor, every Tang courier knows it, that pigeons are secret inspectors trained by palace eunuchs. They're said to recognize forged scrolls, sloppy calligraphy, and couriers who skip rest stops. You nod respectfully at the pigeon. It blinks once ominously. Back on the road, the fog begins to lift. The sun is finally deciding to wake up, peeking shyly over the hills. The paddy water sparkles like molten silver. You pass a farmer bent double over a bundle of leeks, who pauses to shout something about your donkey being too handsome for a postman. You smile and wave. Bowsy sneezes. Your stomach grumbles. Fortunately, just up the road is a familiar sight. A roadside widow with a battered iron pot hanging over a fire, stirring what can only be boiled millet porridge. Her name is Auntie Lee. No one knows her real name. No one asks. She's been here since the Sui Dynasty, or so she claims. She eyes you with practiced weariness. Back again. "New route," you reply. "Jianyang." She ladles a scoop of porridge into a wooden bowl, throws in a pickled radish, and hands it over without ceremony. "Don't spill it on your poetry again." Once you mutter, sitting cross-legged on a woven mat. Auntie Lee has opinions. Lots of them. Today's topic is weather manipulation. She swears the last drought was caused by a bureaucrat burning too many edicts in one day. Angered the sky spirits, she says, shaking her head. Scrolls are for reading, not smoke. You slurp your porridge and listen politely. Her stories range from mildly possible to metaphysically absurd, but she's seen more emperors rise and fall than you've had hot baths. When she speaks, you listen, even when she accuses your belt of being haunted. Once fed and mildly less damp, you offer Biozi a slice of turnip. He takes it as though you owe him reparations. You continue your journey eastward, where the terrain dips into a series of uneven stone paths cut into hillsides. These were built during the reign of Emperor Xuanzong, or so the carved marker claims, though scholars still argue whether the stones were laid then, or simply borrowed from older roads. One theory even claims they were part of an early stage of the Silk Road, later paved over and repurposed by ambitious Tang engineers. Whatever the case, they're slippery. You shuffle carefully. The scrolls bump gently against your back. The birds have taken over the chorus now, cuckoo sparrows, and one parrot escaped from a noble's caravan shouting taxes in a shrill voice every 20 steps. The path narrows again. This time it's flanked by bamboo groves. The air smells of green things and old rain. A fox darts across your path, its eyes catching the light like twin fireflies. You take it as a good omen, or at least not a bad one. You pass a marker post with a carved poem. Postmen ride and ride again through rain and mud and aching men. But only fools would ever boast, the scroll survives, not he who posts. You mutter charming and keep walking. Around the bend, the road opens to a small hilltop shrine, dedicated to the patron spirit of messengers. It's a humble thing, a squat clay figurine holding a scroll in one hand and a chicken leg in the other. You bow once, place a single copper coin on the offering plate, and whisper, "No rain, no thieves, no torn seals." You're not superstitious, just statistically cautious. As you mount Biozi again and head down toward the next checkpoint, your mind drifts. You think about the scroll with the red string and musk scent. You wonder who it's for. You wonder why your supervisor refused to speak of it, only pressing it into your hands, with a grim nod and a warning not to linger near the edges of cities. You've seen strange scrolls before. Once you delivered one that sang when opened. Another was wrapped in fish skin and smelled like regret. But this one feels watched. Your thoughts are interrupted by the distant sound of a flute. 3 notes, repeating. You turn. No one's there. Just the road, the mist, and the scroll strapped to your back. Hey guys, tonight we journey way back to a misty morning in Tang Dynasty, China. The air is cool and thick with fog, the kind that clings to your robe and soaks into your sandals before the sun's even hinted at waking. You stand barefoot outside a clay-walled courier house in a quiet Sichuan village, clutching a worn satchel full of scrolls sealed with crimson wax. Your eyes are barely open, but your duty isn't Tang Postman didn't get sick days. You shift your weight on the creaky bamboo porch as a rooster starts its overzealous crowing somewhere behind the granary. Beside you, an elderly official snores into his teacup, his breath smelling faintly of last night's rice wine and pickled garlic. You'll need to be on the road before the second bell. That gives you maybe 10 minutes to stretch dress and psych yourself up to spend the next 2 days dodging goats floods and the occasional tiger rumor. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and your local time in the comments. I love seeing how far this sleepy little history train travels. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge across the courtyard toward the stable, where your steed awaits, steed being a generous term for the squat, drowsy donkey chewing hay like it owes him money. He blinks at you, slowly, unimpressed. This is Baozi. He's carried royal proclamations, poetry, legal decrees, and once a letter that caused a minor rebellion in a fishing village. But mostly, Baozi just poops and sighs. Your robe today is linen. You tied it tight before stepping out. It's still too big, the belt loop frayed, but it smells faintly of camphor and last week's rain. There's a thin leather pouch slung across your chest. Inside 7 scrolls, 3 stamped with the Imperial Phoenix seal. That means extra scrutiny if they're even slightly crumpled. One crease, and some bureaucrat in Luoyang will spend 3 hours ranting about disrespect. The Tang bureaucracy really knew how to hold a grudge. As the sun fails to rise, you suspect it's sulking behind the mountains. You pour yourself a bowl of salted tea. It's more brine than beverage, but it'll keep you warm and slightly less annoyed. A single rice dumpling steams on the corner of your bamboo plate, half wrapped in lotus leaf. You chew it slowly, savoring the silence, broken only by the muffled snore of the stable boy, asleep inside a hay bin. His name is G. He claims he once outran a wolf by quoting poetry at it. No one believes him. The village bell rings a low gong that vibrates through your chest. Time to go. You hoist your bag, double-check the wax seals, none broken. Good. The blue ink marking the recipient codes still legible. Scroll number 4 is destined for the magistrate of Jianyang. Scroll number 6 goes to the Silk Guild in the valley. Scroll number 2 is blank, except for a cryptic emblem and a red string. That one makes you nervous. It smells faintly of musk and plum wine. Historians still argue whether these odd emblem-stamped scrolls were early forms of encrypted messages, or simply part of a ceremonial gift exchange. Some suggest they were used in coded poetry battles. Yes, those were a thing. You mount Baozi, who shifts his weight dramatically, as if this is the greatest inconvenience he's ever suffered. With a grunt, the two of you head out through the narrow eastern gate, passing under a slanted wooden archway, carved with fading phrases of good luck. Moss has crept up the beams like a slow-motion fire. The road is more mud than road. Your sandals are soaked within the first dozen steps, and you can hear frogs laughing at you from a ditch. Farmers pass you pulling carts stacked with leeks radishes and suspiciously damp bundles. A boy runs by carrying a goose tied to his waist, yelling something about losing a bet. Typical morning chaos. There's a comfort in this rhythm, though. The steady clop of hooves, the way your scroll satchel thuds against your side, the distant echo of temple bells rising like mist over rice paddies. You know this road. Well, it's part of your body now, like an old scar you barely notice. Somewhere ahead, a tea shop is setting up. You can smell fried scallion cakes and boiling ginger. You don't stop yet. You've got at least a lie to go before your first rest. You pass a stone stele half sunken in mud, carved with a poem by a traveler from 50 years ago. It says something about the river and forgetting the names of your children. Very on brand for Tang poetry. You reach a bend in the road and spot the first hill. It's not steep, but it's slick with early dew. You and Baozi eye it with mutual distrust. He takes one experimental step, then sneezes. You dismount and begin the slow, careful climb on foot, gripping the reins like they're the only thread holding you to civilization, which in this moment they probably are. The path narrows. To your left, a bamboo grove whispers in the wind. To your right, a sheer drop into terraced paddies, their mirrors of water catching the first hints of light. A pheasant scuttles by, offended by your existence. You take a deep breath. The scrolls rustle behind you. You think back to the courier training days when you had to memorize the name of every relay post between here and Chang'an, recite the penalties for tardy delivery spoiler. They involve fines, flogging, and tea-ration cuts, and identify 50 types of wax seal tampering. You passed only because the examiner fell asleep during your oral exam, and you just kept reciting until he snored out a passing grade. You reach the top of the hill. The air changes sharper, cleaner, laced with the smell of pine and wet stone. Below you, the valley yawns open, dotted with thatched roofs and specks of smoke curling skyward. A white crane glides overhead, elegant and annoyingly carefree. This is your route. This is your ritual. You won't survive long if you expect praise or poetry. But if you embrace the mud, the mules, the mildly cursed scrolls, then maybe, just maybe, you'll make it to the next checkpoint without your tea flask cracking open again.